My aspiration is to be as imperfect as I can.
Hey friends, welcome to another installment on my diary of making an animated film, the life story of Guillermo del Toro as told in his words. This time I'm going to talk about the audio and assembling my narrative from Guillermo's words because like my Phil Oaks animation, like Innocence of Seduction, it's all collaged audio. I'm taking all the audio of Guillermo's words from YouTube and podcasts that he's done, cutting out little bits of the narrative and keeping track of what they are, sort of organizing them thematically and chronologically to tell his story that sort of bounces back between his public creations, his public life, and then sort of like his philosophies, and also, you know, life experiences he's had that have shaped both of those other things. Cutting audio from found sources has a myriad of difficulties that you have to overcome if you want to pursue doing this. And number one is probably audio quality. It just varies between source to source. Sometimes Guillermo is speaking on a microphone.
After Pan's Labyrinth, I said, you know, I'm going to get my own house, separate from the family home, because I want to do a house exactly how I dreamt it when I was a kid. I wanted a rain room, which was a room where it rained 24/7.
And this is in the AGO. You go into this room, Edgar Allan Poe is in a chair.
Yeah,
and
it's a different solution at the AGO than I did. I did a theatrical one,
right,
with rear projection and this and that.
And so it's constantly dark and it's constantly raining.
And there's a surround system with rain.
It's like perfectly clear and everything's great and professionally produced, but sometimes it's also, you know, in an echoey amphitheater.
We have enthroned the myth of the director that is uncompromising. Kubrick, von Stroheim, you name it. But the reality is that there's always going to be a limitation at some point. Just dying is a limitation. You cannot continue shooting if you're dead in a corner. So the real craft of a director is to make those limitations invisible.
Or sometimes it was done over Zoom, and so you have that very compressed, poor audio quality to deal with.
For me, noir is a very moral parable, a very moral-oriented genre, which actually depends on the character's decisions to shape his destiny or her destiny.
And I've done my best I can to stick to the great audio sources. If he says something super profound and it's only in one source, I might end up using that. It's going to depend on when I end up shaping the entire narrative, but I'm foreseeing this to be like a 20-minute film. So anything that goes over the 20 minutes, I'm gonna have to cut some material, and the first material I'll cut will probably be anything of poor audio quality, because it's been said a number of times, I don't know who originally said it, but you know, viewers of a movie will indulge a little bit of bad visuals, but bad audio will pull them right out of the film. Like chunks of a movie that you can't understand what somebody's saying, that's inexcusable to an audience member, and I understand that. So that's number one, audio quality is what I'm kind of looking for. Number two, if there's other sounds mixed in the background, for example, if it's an interview he did and there's music underneath it, or certainly anything on like a commercially released DVD that has an audio commentary, but there's a little bit of the movie underneath, I'm not using any of that. I just don't want it to have something besides his voice there. I plan on scoring the film with some music, but not sure what music I'm gonna use. Likely I'll create my own music to go with it, and I'll try and do it in the style of his film soundtracks. Like I've been listening to Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water soundtracks a lot recently to try and get that vibe going, but I do not want to even have, you know, a hint of audio from a movie or audio from somebody else's score mixed in with the material. Now, I am taking this audio into Adobe Audition which is the audio software that I do pretty much all my audio editing in, except for GarageBand on my iPhone and iPad. But for a project like this, it's entirely done in Adobe Audition. English is Guillermo's second language. He's been speaking it since age 6, but he's also an INFP personality type like myself, and he's very shy. And so combining those factors, there's a lot of hesitation and pauses and stuttering or kind of things, or sentences that are started and then stopped halfway, and he recontextualizes the sentence to get a better thought. I have decided that in order to sort of make sure I get the film at the length I want it to, and also to just like not have that be a thing that the audience notices, I'm cutting out a lot of his half sentences, his utterings, his repetition of particular words. Like if he says the, you know, as he's thinking of the thought. That's so characteristic of Guillermo del Toro. One of the things I love about him is how naturalistic he speaks. He's not polished. He's not very planned, you know, in his thoughts. It's very instinctive and it's direct and from the heart, but I have to cut a lot of that out.
Being an artist in whatever discipline, dance, painting, theater, whatever you want, is the being an artist.
And in the process of cutting out those utterances, I'm also cutting out a lot of the pauses between phrases, which I'm finding I actually have to like reinsert silence in some cases because it doesn't sound natural. If he says something that's very profound and he leaves a space like I'm doing right now, so you think about those things, it does no good to cut that space out and make it sound very breathless and rushed and hurried, like you don't have a chance to think about what he's thinking. Also, when you get around to watching the film and it's so much of his dialogue, you know, so much of him talking in a row, I think you need breaks. You need spaces to pause for a second. It's very rare, I find, that I want to listen to somebody just speak nonstop for a long period of time. And I know we do it with like podcasts and some other YouTube channels and things like that, but for 20 minutes straight, one person's voice, no breaks, I don't know, gotta have something in between there. So that is how I'm dealing with the audio. Also, I have to level everything. Leveling is pretty easy. I go to -6, +6 decibels whenever I do my stuff. Some of the audio I'm pulling from actually is very scorched, meaning like it's gone way beyond the chart and goes into the red. And that's unfortunate because some of that is very relevant material that he only says in like those 1 or 2 particular interviews. I'm gonna deal with it. There's ways of cleaning up audio that go beyond sort of what I'm gonna talk about in this video. Certainly taking some treble off of things so it's like soft and pleasant to the ears and not piercing as some poor audio is. These are things that you develop when you have like an ear for what sounds good, but definitely the process of taking the audio, breaking it down into relevant bits is how I'm creating my script. Animation generally starts with the script and the sound because you need to know what you're actually drawing. You know, there's animated films that don't have a script. There's animated films that they just work purely visual. But the great thing and the bad thing about animation, it's both ways, is that you can draw whatever you want. It costs as much for me to animate a scene set in my office as it does for me to set myself on Mars, you know, and make myself a monster. It costs the same amount of time and sweat equity to draw these things. So I need to know what I'm making, and to do that, Guillermo's narrative is what drives that. And of course, it also drives how I have him express himself. So in Character Animator, I'll take the audio in and he'll be saying something profound, and if his hands are by his side, that's not great. But if I use the pointing hand, when he makes a profound point, when he's saying something that's very relevant, or if he's talking about something a little more epic in scope, talking about the movies, maybe he gesticulates in a certain way. The audio is what drives how I do my motion capture animation. And so it's really important to get that down. If I did half the audio, got real excited about it, and was like, okay, now I'm gonna start animating a whole bunch of stuff just to see what it looks like, I'm probably gonna end up wasting a lot of time because I'm gonna animate things that might end up getting cut. That's what happened in my previous 2 animated films. I spent months doing scenes and stuff, and then realized that, you know what, this isn't relevant to the story. I wanna keep it as tight as possible, and those are bits that went. So yeah, I think if you're a new animator and you're not really sure where to begin, knowing what your script is and then having your voiceover actors, if that's the way you're gonna go, or in my case, having the collage audio story ready before I start making my full scenes, that's where you start. So, hope you enjoyed this production journal. Talk to you next time.